this morning because we are starting a brand new series. But let me kick this off by telling you a little story I was reminded of. There was a pastor who was invited to go and speak to elementary school children. And so he thought, as a little bit of an icebreaker, to ask them, can anybody here tell me who was it that broke down the walls of Jericho? Now, the kids shuffled a little bit in their seats, and they look completely uncertain. One little boy raises his hand and says, Pastor, my name is Bruce. I don't know who did it, but it wasn't me. Now, it's an old joke, right? But it kind of tells a little bit of a greater truth, which is even a generation ago, and particularly 2 generations ago, people were far more biblically fluent than they are now. And kids are growing up in an environment with parents who never experienced church and don't have any exposure to the Bible. Now, it's easy for us in the church to say, man, that's just horrible. I'm glad I know better. But do we? If I were to ask you, if you could please explain the whole story of the Bible, could you just summarize this for me? How many of us could really do that? And so what we're going to do over the next 6 weeks is we are going to go over the whole story of the Bible, the whole of this whole thing, and in 6 acts, okay, A-C-T-S, like a drama. And I'm not the first person who's come up with this, okay? There are many scholars who will say there are 6 acts of God's salvation story, and they begin with creation, the fall, Israel, Jesus, the church, and then the coming of the new kingdom. And so we're going to do a little bit of speeding through this. And here's why this is so important. You ever go into a movie and you walk in partway, right? And you're like, huh. And you might have a sense of what's going on in that particular scene, but you don't really understand it because you don't know the full plot. And so the problem is you could misunderstand the whole thing unless you know the fullness of it, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look from a 30,000-foot view of the whole story so that when we go and we take a look at each gospel, each psalm, in a smaller way, we know how it fits into the bigger story. So really excited about that. Every once in a while, I like to point you to a good resource. This book is where I borrowed the title of this series. It's called God's Big Picture. We have a number that are in the back of the room that if you would like to go deeper during Lent and take some time to read and learn more about this, it is very easy of a read, and I loved this book when I first read it. I think you will too. In the back, we're selling them for $10, which I think is even cheaper than what you can get on this thing called Amazon. Maybe you've heard of it. If we run out, I think they have more. But as we go through this series, here's what we're going to learn. The Bible is actually a collection of books, 66 to be exact, but they tell one collective account of God's story and who God is. So, and I'll give you a heads up too, as we do this, because we're looking at this from a high level, we won't be able to go into every detail, and we're going to scan multiple chapters, if not books, at the same time. It might be a little different than what we've normally done, but I think you're really going to appreciate it. And today we're going to begin in the beginning with creation. Act 1 is creation. So I have invited our own Noel to come on up here and read for us. Okay. And I would highly encourage you, if you would please, and if you're here, he's going to be reading out of the same exact version, and I'm actually not going to have the words up on the screen. Turn over to Genesis chapter 1. It's right, take that cover, just go right over, and you will see Genesis chapter 1. Noel is actually going to read the whole chapter for us and even a little bit of chapter 2. As he does this, just allow the beauty of what you're hearing to sink in. Okay? Noel?
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light sky, God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from the water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruits with seeds in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times, and days and years. And let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on earth." And it was so. God made 2 great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living thing with which the water teems and that moves around in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning, the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the grounds according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, and they'll be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give you every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all he had work on creating that he had done.
Let's hear from Noel. Woo! All right, so suppose you are at an art exhibition and you walk up and you are just mesmerized by the beauty and the paintings in front of you, and somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, would you like to meet the artist? It's kind of a cool thing, right? That's kind of what is happening in Genesis right here. The primary purpose of this text is to introduce us to God. In the very first sentence, we see this, in the beginning, who was it? God. God exists. He's always existed, and he created everything. And so, God is not created, which is hard for us as creatures to understand, but he's always existed. Father, Son, Spirit, one God together in loving relationship throughout eternity. Never was a time that God was not. And although Jesus took on human flesh, that was not the beginning of the Son. The Son has existed throughout all eternity together with the Father and the Spirit. And here in Genesis, God creates how? By speaking it. Later, John will tell us when Jesus came that he is the embodiment of God's spoken word. Okay, so what was God doing before creation? I can tell you he wasn't bored. And he wasn't like, I need a new hobby. I love Dallas Willard's answer to that question. He said God was simply enjoying himself. He was not alone. He was with Father, Son, Spirit perfectly. He was complete. And yet, in his goodness, he decided to create. Don't know exactly why, but he did. And the technical term is ex nihilo. It's from the Latin to mean out of nothing came something. So God didn't reshape some pre-existing material. He spoke and it came into being. Now, have you ever considered that one of the most powerful arguments for the existence of God is the simple question, where did the stuff come from? Even if you say, okay, but there's a Big Bang and stuff, right? Where did the stuff for the Big Bang come from? There has to be something that starts this, and it is not a simple thing to say, if you say, I don't know, and you keep on living your life, that itself is a theological decision. But somehow, we've got to make it clear that these things came into existence. How? Genesis tells us by God. Romans 1, verse 20 tells us that God's invisible qualities are clearly seen in what has been made. In other words, when you look out at the beauty of creation, you see the glory of God. Because it's his handiwork. It's his artistry. Now, at this point, okay, particularly given how many of us in Silicon Valley are in scientific studies, you might be wondering, wait a minute, how do I reconcile, Pastor, this whole 7-day thing? Okay? Let me say this. A day to the Lord is not always a day to us. And throughout history, both the Jewish people and Christians later very much said, that can very much be a figurative thing. And so for those who might say, I want it to be more strict, for those who want it to be more open, we can be together because the most important thing here is that God's existence is there. And all things in existence owe their existence to God. That's the primary thing. And we can get stuck on these other things. So the universe is not self-generating. The universe came into existence by God. That's the first point Genesis tells us. And then 2, not only did God create creation and it's good, it's very good. It's like some of the only Hebrew I really remember is, it's not just ma'ov, it is tov ma'ov. So, turn to your neighbor and say, Tov, Ma'ov. All right? Okay. That's right. You tell your Pentecostal friends we spoke in tongues this morning, okay? Standing back, God looks at all of it like an artist, not with arrogance, but like, man, that is good. No, wait, it's very good. With delight. And this is more revolutionary than you might realize, not just for the past, but for us, because it shapes our worldview. It shapes how we look at the whole of creation. You may not realize this, but throughout history, people have struggled with this dichotomy of the physical world and the invisible, the spiritual world. And we're going to learn more about this next week, but part of sin is that these two have been separated. So often what we've done is we've said, spirit good, stuff bad, okay? Body bad, dirty, yuck. Spirit good. That is not the way that God designed us. He designed us as one human being, body, soul, creation, all very good. And so the stuff of creation, sky, bodies, breath, food, music, even the Cleveland Browns are not a mistake. Well. This world is not something that we must escape because somehow it's all, just going to hell in the handbasket. Do you realize that it is bad theology to say, I love the song, okay, but I'll fly away one morning, I'll fly away. Yes, you will, but then you're coming back. Okay, you go to heaven, and then heaven comes to earth. God is on a project to renew and revigorate all of creation. The Bible begins in a garden, and it's going to end in a very tangible, real, physical garden. And one day, you will have a renewed, resurrected body. Stuff is good. It's very good. This matters so much because it shapes our entire worldview. This afternoon, I am so excited because our dear friends, like when we first came to California, is it 20 years? 19? Anyway, a long time ago, they became our friends at the church we're at in Saratoga. This afternoon, he is making, I don't know what it is, he's calling it pork belly, which sounds like bacon to me, so I'm really excited, okay? And we're going to get together, and we're going to eat that stuff, and somehow I'm going to enjoy how good it tastes. And you know what? That's actually a part of enjoying the good creation. You see, God created taste buds. Isn't that weird? Right? He didn't have to do that. But it's good. You enjoy this. God created creation to enjoy. It's very good. Think about it this way. What was Jesus' first miracle? He watered to wine. It was a miracle about creation. God took something and said, I'm going to renew this and make it beautiful and wonderful. And he didn't make bad wine, right? I kind of I'm thinking about my lunch this afternoon. I'm thinking like it's a big peppery Zen, right? I love the peppery Zen, okay? All right, that was not incidental. That was a sign. John says it was a sign. God delights in his creation. Creation is not yuck, spirit good. They're both designed to be together. And it's a sign that God was restoring fully what was originally very good. That's Jesus' whole project. Creation is fallen, but it's still good, and it's very much worth redeeming. In fact, in your very vocation, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You are a part of bringing out the very good. That's what we're called to do. All right, so God has made these things around us, and in Christ he's restoring it, but that leads us to the third point, okay? Humanity is part of God's creation, and humanity is God's greatest creation. So far, what Genesis has told us is God's a creator. All of creation is very good. And now it answers some of the deepest questions. In fact, some of the questions that are really right at the middle of our culture right now that are being wrestled over. Who am I? Why am I here? What does it even mean to be human? Right here in the opening chapters of Genesis, these questions God lays out because he knew people are going to have these questions, and he answers them. Chapter 1, verse 26, God says, let us make mankind in our image. At the very peak of creation is not ocean or mountains or even the stars in the sky, not even angels. Humanity is at the peak. because only humanity is made in the image of God. Genesis 2:7 gives us this picture. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And the man became a living being. And so just the other day, if you were with us at Ash Wednesday, it was a beautiful time to start off this season of preparing for the crucifixion and resurrection. We put ashes on people's foreheads and said, you are dust, and to dust you will return. Now, that's only part of the story, but it's an important reminder that we are created, and we must rely on our Creator, especially for our salvation. And yet, what we find out right here is we all have the breath of God within us. The reason why you have an eternal spirit, okay, is because your life is not self-originating. It is given. It is given from God. And here's where I will pause again for my scientific-leaning congregation, okay? Many of you have been taught about origin of humans in a biological way and studied it, and some of you even work in the sciences. So how does Genesis here relate to that? What I want to note is Genesis is not a scientific textbook. This was not written to explain the scientific questions that we have in the 21st century. I already told you, why was Genesis written? It's written to tell you about God, who he is, what he is like, how he did. So if you go into a bookstore, you know what a bookstore is? You go into a bookstore, there are different sections in there. The section that Genesis is in is not the science section. It's the theology section. It is telling you about God. And so wonderful Christians have gone down this road and they've missed the whole picture. Okay, it is about God. But here's what I will say. However God brought the human body, whether through immediate creation or through a long biological process, the claim of Genesis is that at some point in history, God set humanity apart. By his breath, he made us image bearers. We are accountable to him. We're capable of knowing him. We are in relationship with him and one another through this. Regardless of how you believe in this, what is critical is at some point, whether through a long process, whether through an immediate process, different really smart Christians, believe me, I run into them and I have way too much studies behind me, have disagreed about this, and it's okay, because the most important thing is we are in the image of God and we have the breath of God within us. Can we agree on that? Yeah, yes, Mark, I'm with you. Okay. And after creating humanity, God doesn't simply say it's good. You know what he says? This is very good. Tov ma'ov. You know what? I heard this when I was a teenager, but it's so true, and we need to be reminded of this. God does not make junk. God makes beautiful things. And so many of us along the way have had something happen to us, or the very just self-existence of looking in the mirror and dealing with shame. As part of sin, we actually have a broken relationship with ourselves. And so we're convinced that, you know what? Yeah, I kind of believe that I'm a good creation, but I'm not really very good. You are God's masterpiece. You are beautifully and wonderfully made. That's what Scripture says. And you need to know that and hear that from your Father. You're beautifully and wonderfully made. You are his child. And I think that's critically important, particularly for our kids to know. Who are you? You are not an accident, sweetheart. You are a designed, intentional creation of God, and he designed you beautifully. Then Genesis tells us something equally important. It says, verse 18, chapter 2, the Lord said, "It's not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." This is the first time that we find something that's not good. Everything's good, 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 very good. This is not good. What is it? Isolation, loneliness. We were made in the image of a God who is community unto God's self, right? And so if we're in the image of that God, it's not good for any of us to be alone. And so God creates woman. It's been said, not from his head to rule over him, not from his feet to be underneath him, but from his side, equal in dignity, distinct in embodiment, created for partnership. In the beginning, there was not this tension between male and female. In the beginning, it was meant to be a clear partnership together. And so together, male and female come together and better even image God. Because together, not only male, female, but also as church, we together are one church, and to be able to reflect the community of God as one. So from the beginning, there was the shared dignity between male and female in the shared life under God. And so, again, who are you? You're beautifully and wonderfully made in the image of a God who loves you so much that he died for you. And God declares, you are my masterpiece. That's who you are. And so the next obvious question is, okay, if that's who God is, and this is creation, and I'm part of his creation, and well, what's my purpose? Genesis answers that as well. God gave us a purpose. That's my fourth point. Genesis 1 verse 26 says this: let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. Okay, so here's the picture. God is the great king. He's even speaking in royal language, right? Let us do this. Now, those of us who are Christians can look back and see this very much as a reflection of the Trinity. But he is the great king here. That makes us his image-bearing stewards. We, together with him, become co-creators to steward his creation. So imagine the great sculptor, right? Michelangelo. Let's pretend that we have, well, you probably have far more talent than I do, but my wife at one time was a sculptor, now she does painting. But comes up to you and says, I need to leave town. I got to go, and I got this appointment over in Venice. Would you do me a favor? Would you finish my work for me? That's a little bit about what God is saying. And if you were to do this, the best way to do it would be to complete the work in a way that honors him, right? You don't put your own spin on a Michelangelo, right? You say, I'm going to do this as the steward he left me in charge of. And that's where we find ourselves. So therefore, we are not tyrants over the whole of creation. We don't exploit creation. We're God's faithful representatives. And so that's something like what God has done for humanity, to be my understudy, my artist along with, and what a privilege, right? But what a responsibility. It's a beautiful thing to say, I want you, being in my image, to take this and make something beautiful out of it. So God loves his creation. We bear his, and we should love what he loves, right? That means caring for the world. And regardless, put aside all the political baggage, right? I know that this whole idea of creation care comes with a lot of baggage. Genesis makes it clear a Christian should care deeply about the creation, not to the point where it becomes an idol, but we absolutely should be those who say, this is my Father's world, and I have a role to reflect him and say that this is his world, and he's entrusted his creation to us. And that is part of my vocation. And in fact, if regardless of whatever your profession, Your vocation is to bring about beauty. You are the artist who's continuing to chip away at the stone to make something beautiful for the rest of the world. But not only did God give us a vocation, he ordained a rhythm for us to show us how to live into this. Genesis 2, verse 2 says, by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. So was God tired? No, he's not tired. Why did he rest then? He rested because he was setting a rhythm. He was setting a rhythm for all of creation. You take a time to work, but don't forget to take time to rest. Creation needs time where we are actively engaging together with it, but we need this rhythm of rest. And I can't tell you how much this is a necessary reminder where we live. Because there are certain companies, I won't name them, that if you ate every meal at that company, they would provide you a bed, and they will let you work there, probably, forever. But God says that is not a healthy thing. You were created to have meaningful work, and that includes some time to rest. Isn't that awesome? Don't you want a father who says, honey, you need to stop for a minute. Let's go out and play. That's our Father. The world was not created to run endlessly, and neither are you. And so your Father is not a tyrant who says, get to work. He's the one who says, let's stop and let's go rest. He designed you to work, but he also wants you to play. Go and enjoy relationships with one another and with him. And so it's hard not to tie this into our 4 Gs. Okay, if you've been around PCC for a while, even right there on the wall, we have these things we call our G4s that help us to, what does it mean to have a rhythm within our church, to follow Jesus? Well, the first one is gather. Good job this morning. You're here. You took the rhythm of the week and said, I'm coming to worship. I need to stop to reconnect with God and with my church family. Excellent. That's the way God designed the rhythm to work. But also, in addition to that, there's also this little mini Sabbath that we try to do every day to take some time to connect with God. It's this rhythm: work, rest, work, and to reconnect relationally as you do this. That's how God designed you. And when we rest, we say to the Lord, I trust you. I trust that you're going to provide for my needs when I stop working. I trust that when I give, you're going to take care of my needs. And that's exactly the way it's designed to be. And so this whole rhythm is part of what it means to worship. And maybe you've never even thought about it this way. And we talk about worship and we think of worship as singing. Well, it is. It's part of it, right? But the whole of worship is operating in a rhythm in a way that honors God in our whole lives as stewards of his creation, in our workplace, in our families. That includes working and being stewards for him, and even resting and playing. And if we don't honor the Sabbath, we are falling short of what God commanded us to do. By the way, do you know about how many people that we have in our regular member and attendance here? I should say more attendance at PCC. If everybody show up on a Sunday, we are well over 800 people, right? Well over 800. But only half of us show up on a Sunday, maybe a little more. I just want to say, particularly this Lent, one of the most important things that you can do is reclaim this rhythm. The rhythm to say, Lord, I know I need to work, but I need to reconnect with you on that one day and come to rest and celebrate the importance of my relationship and relying upon you. Okay, covered a lot of ground. So before we close, let me summarize where we've been, because I mentioned Genesis answers some of the biggest questions that anybody will ever answer. Is there a God? Yes, there is. And he created all things, all of existence came from him. So is this world an accident? No. No, it is not. It was spoken into being by a good and personal God, and he declared it all. It's so very good. Creation is good. Who am I? You are not a random accident. You were intentionally designed and put together, and your life is a plan that God has. You are created in the image of God. You are formed from the dust, yes, but you have his very breath within you. And you are made for relationship with him and one another. And most importantly, and I just hear this again, you are very good. You were created by him. Why are you here? Well, you're an image bearer. You're there to reflect the whole of God as creator, to do things in beauty that reflect the one who brought the beauty in, to take this place even further and make it ever more beautiful, to be a good steward. So what is life supposed to feel like? It's not supposed to be endless striving. God never intended it that way. It's supposed to be a time of work and then rest and play and connection with relationships. That's how the story begins, with creation. Now, if you just walked in for the first time today, you would be right to say, what happened? What happened? Because this is not really very good. Whatever you just described, this whole garden and God and being together, it's not my experience. And you'd be right. That's Act 2. You got to come back next week to hear about that. Okay?